Hello, welcome to the conversation in News Central Television. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Benga Aboroa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Today on the conversation, we will be looking at the mediation efforts of French President Emmanuel Macron towards ending tensions between DR Congo and Rwanda.
We'll also be touching on the latest in the ongoing lecturers' strike in Nigeria, as the Academic Staff Union of Universities has refused to obey a court order asking the union to return to the classroom. Quite an interesting development there. It's been going on for 9 months now, and the students are still at home. Very unfortunate.
Unfortunate,
no one wants to budge. The government doesn't want to pay. The lecturers don't want to go back to school.
And
the students are caught in the middle.
And the students right now are saying no, because protests, I believe this week, are blocking the roads, and they even said that they would even stop political campaigns, which are to start September 28th. So I mean, I've said it a lot that probably there should be a compromise, because this is not the first time that we're having strikes going on in public universities, and it's affecting the education. So you can't even plan yourself.
They can just meet all their. I mean, there are other factors to look at, but can we have a situation where strikes will, especially in universities, will be a thing of the past?
I think the Nigerian government needs to work towards it, definitely.
Yeah, so, and it's part of what we'll be discussing today. But first, the French President Emmanuel Macron met leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo amidst tensions between the two East African neighbours over M23 rebel activity near the common border since June. In his address to the General Assembly of the United Nations, Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi denounced Rwanda's support for the M23 rebels.
The meeting came moments after Rwandan President Paul Kagame told the General Assembly that the blame game doesn't solve problems. Kagame says he supported a regional initiative to end the resurgence of fighting in eastern DR Congo, but said it would require consistent financial support from the international community. The Congolese Presidency has, however, tweeted that they had agreed to work together for M23 rebels to withdraw from occupied areas as soon as possible and for displaced people to return. Now, join us live for this conversation. We have Asong Michael Kumba, a lawyer and member, Rwanda Bar Association and East African Law Society. We also have Obert Hodzi, a lecturer in politics, University of Liverpool, United Kingdom. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks.
All right, so
for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. I'll start with Asong now. We are having three leaders, the French leader, the Rwandan leader, and DR Congo leader coming together to end this deadlock between DR Congo and Rwanda. What do you make of this meeting on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. As a matter of fact, we have to understand that presently the world is really divided over the conflict in Russia, in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. And also due to the fact that Russia is gaining more grounds in Africa, and the West is trying to use diplomatic methods to be able to resolve other African conflicts, because all these can sum up and actually aggravate to a world conflict or a world war. So looking at the meeting between Macron and the president of Rwanda and DRC, actually it's a good step by Macron to actually invite these two presidents to come to negotiations and resolve the problem that is taking place in Goma by the M23 rebels. So as a reminder, the M23 rebels are actually rebels that were fighting against the government of DRC Congo. And this was actually due to the poor governance, corruption, and rigging of elections of the former President Joseph Kabila. So it's not something that started today. And you know, when there is a conflict, people can always take sides and help can always come from any angle. But nevertheless, both countries, Rwanda has refused to be part of the M23 and has been supporting the M23. They have refused those allegations. And Congo too is said to have been keeping some of the Hutu people who actually committed the genocide, but they too have refused. So nevertheless, it is on the part of these two presidents to sit down again and resolve this issue. We have to remember that negotiations have been taking place. This is not the first negotiation. I think there was one in August, and previously there have been previous negotiations. But unfortunately, these negotiation processes did not include the M23 rebel leaders. So automatically, these negotiations are destined to fail. I don't think that the best method in resolving this is to ask for more finances, to use weapons, and to try to conquer these rebel leaders, because at the end of the day, we'll have the civilians who will suffer more. I think the best thing is to look for a comprehensive approach, which will aim at bringing all the parties together, putting them together, and so that they could talk on peace treaties that will actually bring calm to the region.
Thank you very much, Song. I'd like to bring in Albert in Liverpool. France has said that Kagame and Tshisekedi agreed on the need to pull out M23 rebels from the strategic town of Bunagana, which is on the Ugandan border. How important is this, and does this go far enough? And who is going to carry out this instruction? Because, several panels and observers, and even the United States Secretary of State have fingered the Rwandan authorities as part of the sponsors of M23. So when they ask M23 to pull out of Bunagana, who are they really giving that order to? And does this go far enough?
I think there are significant challenges like you have raised. So first of all, the question is, who is sponsoring M23? What are they fighting for, and are their grievances sorted out? And I think it's not being genuine to ask either Rwanda or to ask the DRC to force them to stand down, because they're not able to. They have been unable to fight the M23 for decades now. And I think that's a significant challenge. So the lack of clarity on who is supposed to carry out this order, like you have said, I think that's one major fault with this solution that have been proffered. The second thing is the fact that there is tendency not to deal with the problem here. The problem is the lack of trust, the lack of confidence between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These accusations by the United Nations, by many other different bodies, by the DRC itself, that Rwanda is supporting rebel movements in the DRC haven't been resolved. And unless those issues have not been resolved, I think it becomes very difficult for any party to deal with the M23. I think the conflicts will continue. The lack of capacity of the DRC to be able to handle those rebel movements. And I think if which I think is the biggest challenge here, if Rwanda decides, or Rwanda says we are able to make M23 stand down, then in some way they will be acknowledging that they have a hand and an influence on the M23. I think that they may not want to do that based on the issues that have been raised by the United Nations. And so it becomes a catch-22. And for that reason, I don't really think it will be successful. We may see a calming down of the situation, but the underlying causes of this conflict, as long as they remain, I don't think that, I think the conflict will continue.
Okay, I'd like to stay with you, Obed. I mean, there have been various accusations. Even the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that there are credible reports that Rwanda was responsible for the M23. I mean, have there been any valid reports given so far?
I haven't. I think the reports remain, and Rwanda continues to argue that these are baseless accusations. There's no basis for those for the findings of those reports. But I think successive reports saying the same thing, I think that should tell us something, that there is actually some credence of truth in what these reports are saying. And I think the question is about how to hold Rwanda accountable to what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I think is the issue that Macron was trying to avoid in some way. And then the whole issue about, oh, let's not accuse each other. I think it's a common narrative, right? Let's not accuse each other. Let's start from this point and say, let this conflict end. But I think these allegations that have been raised on many different occasions need to be dealt with. And they cannot be dealt with by Macron on his own. Neither can Chikesedi deal with these issues on their own. I think this is where perhaps the African Union, the East African community needs to play a significant role, right? It's not just an issue of saying, let's deal with M23, because another rebel movement will emerge again and the same issues will be raised. I think the issue about minerals, commodities, the issue about ethnic groups as well, ethnicity comes into play here. I think Michael mentioned something about DRC hosting the Hutus. These are underlying issues that have never really been dealt with. And I think these are underlying issues that I think need to be dealt with for there to be a lasting solution to these conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you very much, Obed. Now, Michael Osong, President Felix Tshisekedi, a day earlier in front of the whole world at the United Nations General Assembly, did accuse Kigali of backing rebels' attacks in his country. He mentioned Kigali a few times. In his response, President Kagame has said, you know, this is not the time to trade blame. What do you make of this? And was it the right place and forum to make such accusations, as both countries are part of the African Union? They've been engaging in African Union-led dialogues in Angola and different parts. And also the DRC just joined the East African Community. There's also the issue of FDLR and the claims that Kinshasa is supporting or housing Hutu genocidaires. How has that been looked into, and is it part of the conversations they have at this dialogues?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't think that what President Tshisekedi did by actually placing all these allegations upon Rwanda as being sponsors of the M23 before the whole world is the best way for us to find a solution to this issue. As I earlier said, when we look at certain facts and yeses, we realize that both countries all have a reason why they are blaming each other for. And as President Kagame said, it's not the time or is not the best way to look at the issue by struggling to blame Rwanda for hosting them or anything else, considering the fact that these allegations cannot really be evidenced practically. So these are just some theories which are being raised, but it's possible that it might be what is happening, but we don't have any true facts upon them.
So are you dismissing numerous reports that have come out, even at the level of the United States Secretary of State? Various independent researchers have gone in and said, you know what, all the evidence points at Kigali. Are you saying all those reports are false?
Well, I can always say that facts must be proven. You know, reports, yes, anyone can make a report, but we need credibility in the reports. And for a report to be credible, we need to associate them with evidence. So we'll need documentary evidence, we'll need real evidence, we need videos, we'll need testimonies to be able to say beyond reasonable doubt.
But these reports, some of them do have all those things you just mentioned, like the United Nations mapping report. It did have all of that documentary evidence, and it was from a respected and independent panel commissioned by the United Nations. So do you have issues with that, with the credibility of that?
Well, as for me, I will talk about what I know and what has been released or said to be placed on media, and we don't have those evidence before us. So that is where the issue is. And that is one of the reasons why we don't actually believe on reports which have been brought by the UN, because they don't reveal this evidence to everybody so that everybody can make out the truth about it. Because I strongly believe that when there is clear evidence about a particular fact, then it is undisputable. It is undisputable. So if Rwanda still claims that they have no hand in the M23, then it therefore means that the evidence which was brought by the UN is not material enough to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Rwanda had a role to play. And that is the reason why Rwanda cannot accept, because if you can prove beyond reasonable doubt that Rwanda actually is supporting the M23, then we can't say that Rwanda is supporting M23. I think here we have to look at evidence. And when we look at evidence, we need real evidence to be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that that is actually what happened. And I believe that the reports from the UN can demonstrate clearly that Rwanda has a direct role to play in supporting the M23 rebel groups. For me, that is what I think, and I strongly believe that the allegations which Rwanda has towards DRC Congo by the fact that they actually hosted the Hutu genocidals, it's true. Everybody knows that the most of the Hutu leaders and the Hutu group who actually committed the genocide fled to DRC. And we all know that there was an international criminal tribunal which was being created in Arusha to resolve this issue. And they wanted to get punished all those who committed or those who perpetrated genocides. But DRC did not assist in sending back the perpetrators to Rwanda so that they should be punished. So these are the things which President Kagame is saying, that it is not the time to put blames, because if you want to put blames on the table, everybody will have something to say. And I think that to get to peaceful arrangement, or an arrangement that will actually bring stability in the region, automatically we should be looking forward on how we can stop hostilities, on how we can bring peace in the region. Remembering that the M23 rebel group did not even start now. It started since. It started just after the Second Congo War.
All right,
so
Michael, from all what you're saying right now, we're still waiting for valid reports coming from the DRC government, even though the UN is still insisting that these allegations are true. But we still wait for valid reports concerning this. But let's take a look at those who are suffering from the activities of the M23 rebels. And I would like to bring in Obert with this now. Now, both governments have agreed on the return of people displaced by war from these localities to their homes with the support of the UN, its partners from the African Union, the East African Community, and the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. So tell me, Obert, how significant is this, and are the displaced people willing to return?
I think it's great that they have said those things. It shows they are thinking about the victims of this conflict. But I think the lack of genuineness of these solutions is in the fact that the underlying causes of the conflict have not been resolved. So even if people return, what are they returning to? They're returning to a conflict that has just stopped for a while, and they need to continue when the world looks the other way. The displacement of people in the DRC did not start today. People have been displaced for a very long time, and they move back without a state that is able to protect them, without the UN that is able to protect them, with a mandate to protect them. I think it's not going to work. People are not going to be willing to return to homes that they are not sure that they're going to be safe there, right? So people may not necessarily return. I think many people would think they are safer in the refugee camps that they are in, or in the places where they're already in, where they have some level of protection. So to be honest, I don't really have so much faith in these solutions, because displacements in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been ongoing for a very long time, and there just is no solution to those conflicts. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that the United Nations, of course, has been providing support, has been providing security for some people in some refugee camps. But recently we have seen some demonstrations in the Democratic Republic of Congo, people saying the United Nations is not able to protect people as they hope that it will be able to protect them. So they would rather have the UN leave. those things should be looked at, right? Why are people protesting against the United Nations? What kind of insecurities are people facing? And those things are usually not seen. It's discussions in New York, it's discussions elsewhere, or people thinking, imagining what these conflicts are causing to these people in these areas. So I think without really the input of people who are directly affected by these conflicts, most of these solutions will just be solutions on paper, but they will not necessarily resolve the issues that people have.
Thank you, Obed. Now, my final question will go to Michael. We've seen the French president come in to mediate this crisis between the DRC and Rwanda. Will President Macron be a constant party to mediation efforts going forward? Is this a one-off? And what influence, how much influence can he leverage to exert pressure on both parties to work towards dialogue and reconciliation?
I think the part President Macron is trying to play here will be a very difficult part because when we look at the relations between France and its former colonies, colonial colonies, you realize that France is losing ground. France does not also have a good relation with Rwanda, and automatically trying to mediate such a situation becomes very, very difficult because we know of the difficulties France has been having with these former colonies. So I don't think he will be in the best place to resolve this issue, and I don't think there is any pressure that he can exert on President Kagame or the president of DRC, knowing fully well what happened when the French president came to Rwanda, the way he was received, and that was due to the fact that he sent his minister to receive President Kagame at the French airport. So it just shows that African presidents are beginning to understand that they have independence as being portrayed by the UN Charter. So I think what France is just doing, or President Macron is doing now, is just to give them advice. But I think it's on the part of our African leaders, President Kagame and President Tshisekedi, to resolve this issue. I think they are knowledgeable enough and they have enough experience. And if the desire is to create peace in the region, then actually they have to work together. And I think President Kagame's proposal on the resolution of this issue is that it's not time to lay blame, but it's time to sit together and look for methods, concrete methods that may be used to resolve the issue. The first thing is that they have to put the M23 rebel group on the table. You cannot have negotiations without the rebels. And that is why we see things escalating today, because the last negotiation that was done in August did not include the rebel leader. So automatically, the rebels were not part of the negotiation. And that is why we still have difficulties now. So they have to sit together and they have to resolve the issue. I have to remind you that in 2013, there was also a peace negotiation and it included the rebels. So it made things easier. And in 2013, there was some sort of calm right up to 2021 when hostilities came back up.
Yeah,
so I think
people
they
will
have
tell
to go
you
back
that they
and
were
review.
driven out by a combined team of Congolese forces and the United Nations peacekeeping mission there. But that's as much as we could take. Thank you very much, Asong Michael Kumba. Thanks for joining us from Kigali, and also Obed Hodsi, lecturer in politics, University of Liverpool, joining from Liverpool, England. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights and contribution.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're watching the conversation on News Central Television. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll be talking about university strike in Nigeria. The National Industrial Quarters ordered lecturers to call off their 9-month strikes, but the lecturers are saying they're not going anywhere. What are the implications of this and university education in Nigeria? More. We'll unpack all of this when we return from this break. You stay with us.